Hey folks, Doug Blake with Body Design University. In this video, I want to do a quick review on the controversial stretches that you're going to find in chapter 14. Now, I don't often get questions on these stretches because it's really pretty straightforward. There are a couple of, and by the way, there's many more than this, but these are some of the more common, quote, controversial stretches that NASM deemed to be important to talk about. In general, when you're training people, the average client, there's some very simple, very basic stretches that you would do for each of the major muscle groups. And what NASM wants you to know is that there are a couple here that are pretty much on the high end of don't do these. Please don't do these with your clients. And they're absolutely correct. It's really pretty interesting because if you do yoga or if you do some martial arts and actually sports specific type training, these are common stretches and positions that you put your body into. Now, the key here, again, to understand why they put this in here, the key is that the average client simply does not need to do anything like this because the stretching that's occurring with these controversial stretches, that stretching can be done way safer, way better, way easier with just other basic stretching exercises. If you're going to stretch your quad or you're going to stretch your hamstrings or whatever the case is, you don't need to do the inverted hurdler stretch. And now, again, just want to make sure you understand that if you are an athlete, if you have to do this, you got to do it. Just remember that anytime you do exercises, stretches that have the potential for injury or increased stress on a joint or the tendons or the ligaments, it's just the price you pay. The problem here, and we can go over each one of these, the problem with the inverted hurdler stretches, and by the way, I should have told you that, I'm on page 479 in chapter 14. Best thing to do, by the way, is just write these down. Just write them down in a list and what the problem is with each one of them. So from a testing perspective, if you are asked a question as to the issue or the problem, or would you recommend this type of stretch, yada, yada, you would know these are the no-go stretches. The inverted hurdler stretch, the plow. I don't think I've seen that one being done in literally decades by most people. The shoulder stand, the straight leg toe touch, and of course the arching quadricep stretch. We used to do these all the time in athletic type of training for specific athletes. Now, again, if you're a hurdler, right, and that's what you do, that's what your sport is, you probably need to do the inverted hurdler stretch. Perhaps. Now, again, a lot of the issue with flexibility and these controversial stretches is related to the beginning flexibility state of the athlete. There are some athletes that can do these exercises with little to no issues or problems. They're so flexible, like a dancer. I've seen dancers do this arching quadricep and the inverted hurdler stretch without any issues or any problems, no pain. That's just not the common or average client. So there's already assumed poor flexibility to begin with. So once again, that's why NASM correctly says controversial. They are only controversial because they may cause or they have a higher potential for causing problems and damage in the joints themselves, or again, the connective tissue, the ligaments and the tendons. So the problem with the inverted hurdler stretch, if you look at that picture, figure 1418, it's not the left leg that she is stretching. Obviously, that is the problem. It's the right leg. Now, again, that's really dangerous on the right knee, especially the medial collateral ligaments, because there is going to be a stress on that. Now, how could I just switch this up to make it a fine stretch? An okay stretch. All I do is maybe pull that leg out front, maybe, and that would be fine for an average client, perhaps. I'm not saying that that's exactly what you would do, but the point is that this inverted hurdler stretch is designed to mimic the position that somebody would be in when they go over and they take their initial jump to square the hurdle. So obviously, it's designed to stretch the hamstring of the left leg. By pulling that leg back, you essentially twist and manipulate the pelvis in such a way where you should be able to get a better stretch on the hamstrings. Again, much safer hamstring stretches that you can do. But again, that's why it's considered to be a controversial. In other words, it's potentially problematic. The plow, this is just problematic in any number of ways, for individuals that are not overweight, that don't have a blood pressure issue. Okay, that's cool. The part about having your hips up above the head, right? Okay, but that's not where the real problem occurs. The problem with this is what it's doing to the neck, the cervical spine, or the upper thoracic and cervical spine. That's where the real problem and potential danger lies. The other thing, and I've done this 1,000 times. I've worked with athletes where we do stuff like this. Believe it or not, there's another problem with the plow, and that's getting back out of position, because it could put an undue level of stress on your lumbar spine as well. Just the positioning and the stress that's being placed on the erector spinae muscles at this point. But just the position itself, the neck, the cervical spine is problematic. But now, I've had individuals twist and go the wrong way, and boom, they fall out of it, and that could hurt the lower back. So again, what are you stretching here anyway? The lower back? I don't know, but there's way better stretches to stretch any of these muscles without the unnecessary stress placed, particularly on the cervical spine. The shoulder stand is just essentially problematic because it's difficult for people to even get into that position. And that's even worse than the plow when it comes to the cervical vertebrae. Again, these are just unnecessary because I'm not really sure what you're trying to stretch. I know that they use some of these in some yoga classes. I don't take yoga classes, so I don't know anymore, but I've done these, and we're talking decades and decades ago. Of course, we used to do this when I was in gymnastics, things like that. All of these exercises. If your body can go into this position, put it in that position, and it's going to stretch something. But you can see, obviously, the problem that you have here in figure 1420 with the neck, right? And being squeezed forward like that. It is a problem. Okay. The straight leg toe touch, and they're telling you it's really pretty straightforward. The average person that goes to touch their toes, they're going to round their back, and you've already, because now you're creating or losing the lordotic curve in the lumbar spine. Anytime you do that, it's potentially problematic. And of course, we know the average person, again, not everybody, I'm talking about your average client, simply do not have the flexibility. They don't have the beginning flexibility to be able to lean forward and put the appropriate stretching on the hamstrings. In fact, you'll feel it in the hamstrings, of course, but look at the way the lower back is rounded. The only way this makes sense is if you can keep your rib cage arched up, and everything you're doing is pivoting at the pelvis, right? That pelvic tilting, right, without lumbar movement, right? And so without the spinal flexion component, yeah, it's an okay stretch. That'd be fine. But as soon as you flex the spine, another round your back, that's where the issue comes in. The arching quadricep. This is just really problematic on the knee, particularly obviously the patella tendon, not just from the quadricep superior to the kneecap, but as you go inferior to the kneecap right underneath. There's just huge problems with this. Once again, the question is, right, from a pragmatic perspective, why are you doing this with your clients? It's difficult to get into and it's difficult to get out of. That's like the real world scenario. But again, there's better ways to stretch your quadriceps that do not put undue levels of stress on the knee. And this is a huge problem for the knee joint. I hope this was helpful. I just wanted to do a quick recap of this last part of chapter 14, because again, most folks don't really go through it or even read it other than to, browse right through it, get to the end of the chapter and move then on to chapter 15. But I would recommend that you do stop, write down the names of these exercises, and a couple of words or a sentence, write down, especially what NASM has written here, condensed what the issue and the problem is with each of these controversial exercises. So have a great week. Remember to subscribe to our channel. If you want to come on board every Wednesday night, we play Quizlet Live, 6 o'clock Eastern time, 6 to 6:30. It's a lot of fun. Very helpful when it comes to studying and passing your NASM exam. Just let us know how we can be of assistance. Have a great week. See you.